Brother, be sure to write me about the most important happenings in your life. Address your letters officially to Semipalatinsk, and unofficially, you know where. Write about all our Petersburg acquaintances, write of literature as specifically as possible, and finally, write about our Muscovites. What is our brother Kolya doing? How is, and this is the most important, our little sister Sashinka? Is our uncle still alive? And how is our brother Andrei? I am writing to Auntie through our sister Vorochka. I am taking advantage of a special opportunity to do so. That letter is being sent in secret, and for heaven's sake, keep this letter a secret too, and even burn it. Don't endanger other people. Don't forget to send me the books, my dear friend, above all the historians, the economists, notes of the fatherland, the church fathers, and the history of the church. Send them at different times, but start sending them right away. I seem to be treating your pocket as if it were my own, but that's because I don't know what your financial situation is. Write me about that to give me a more accurate idea of how things stand. But understand, brother, that books mean life. They are my food and my future. So, in the name of God, don't forsake me. Please, find out whether you can get permission to send me books officially. Still, you better be careful about it. If it is officially addressed to him, if it is officially authorized, then send them. If not, send them through the brother of K.I. addressed to him, and they will be forwarded to me. But K.I. will be in Petersburg himself this year. He will tell you about everything. What a family he has. What a wife. She is a young lady, the daughter of the Decembrist Anenkov. What a heart, what a spirit, and how much they have had to bear. I shall try to find you another address in Semipalatinsk where I am going in a week. I'm still not quite well, and that is why my departure has been delayed for a while. Send me Keres, Kant's Critique de Raison Pure. And if there is any way of doing so unofficially, send me Hegel without fail, especially Hegel's History of Philosophy. My whole future is linked with it. But in the name of God, do your best and petition them to transfer me to Caucasus. Also, find out from people in the know whether there isn't some way for me to obtain permission to publish and how one must go about it. I shall petition in 2 or 3 years. Until then, please feed me. Without money, soldiering will crush me, so don't fail. What about our other relatives? Don't you think they could help me out, if only to get me started? In that case, let me give you the money and you send it on to me. In that case, let them give you the money and you send it on to me. But in my letters to Auntie and Vorochka, I didn't ask them for money. They'll guess by themselves if their hearts prompt them. As he was leaving for Sevastopol, Filipov made a gift to me of 25 silver rubles. He left them with the Commandant Nabokov, and thus I didn't know anything about it. He thought I would be without money. He's such a kind soul. All our exiles managed to keep alive. Toll has finished his stretch in the prison camp. He is in Tomsk now and getting along quite well. Yastrzemski is finishing out his time in Tara. Spezhnev is in Irkutsk province, where he has gained the love and respect of everyone. This man's fate is extraordinary. Wherever and whenever he appears, the most spontaneous, the most unapproachable people surround him at once with veneration and respect. Petrashovsky still lacks common sense, as he always did. Mombelli and Lvov are in good health, and poor Grigorev has gone completely out of his mind and is in the hospital. And what about yourself? Do you still see Madame Plezhcheyeva? How is her son? From exiles who are passing through here, I heard that he was in the Orsk fortress, and Golovinsky has been in the Caucasus for a long time now. And what are you doing for literature, and how is literature treating you? Are you writing something? How is Krayovsky, and how are your relations with him? I don't think much of Ostrovsky. I haven't read any Pozemsky at all, and Druzhinin turns my stomach. Yevgenia Tur aroused my enthusiastic admiration. I like Krestovsky, too. I should have liked to write much more to you, but so much time has passed that I find myself having difficulty even with this letter, but we cannot, after all, have changed so much in the way we feel toward each other. Kiss the children. Do they still remember their Uncle Fedya? Give my regards to all our friends, but keep this letter strictly secret. Farewell, farewell, my dear fellow. You will hear about me, and maybe you will see me. Yes, we shall surely see each other. Farewell, read carefully everything I have written. Write more often, even if only officially. I hug you and your whole family innumerable times. Yours... P.S. Did you receive my child's fairy tale that I wrote in the fortress? If you have it, don't do anything with it and don't show it to anyone. Who is this Chernov who wrote the Double in 1850? Goodbye, yours, Dostoyevsky. February 22nd. I am almost sure that I shall be leaving tomorrow for Semipalatinsk. K.I. will remain here until May. If you do want to send me something, books, for example, I think that you can still send them. still addressing them to Mikhail Petrovich. Perhaps I shall be able to give you another address, a non-official one, for Semipalatinsk. But be sure to write me as quickly and as often as you can officially. And for God's sake, get busy on my case. Wouldn't it be possible for me to get to the Caucasus or someplace outside of Siberia? Now I shall write novels and dramas. And I also have lots and lots of reading to do. So don't forget me. And once again, goodbye. Kiss all the children. Yours. Goodbye. And now these are the footnotes. So far as is known, this letter is the first that Dostoyevsky wrote after his release from penal servitude. So far as is known, this letter is the first that Dostoyevsky wrote after his release from penal servitude on February 15, 1854. As part of his sentence, he was then required to serve as a private in the 7th Line Battalion of the Siberian Army stationed at Semipalatinsk, which he regularly misspelled as Semipolatinsk. He remained there until 1859, carrying on an active correspondence in 2 channels, an official one through the army where the mail was censored, and an unofficial or secret one through various civilian acquaintances. Most of his letters to Mikhail were sent the second way. In the letter, he mentions other members of the Petroshavsky circle, all of whom were sentenced to death along with him, had their sentences commuted to a period of hard labor, and unlike Dostoyevsky, were granted amnesty in 1856. Ivan Ferdinand Lvovich Yashchemsky, 1814 to 1880s, had taught political economy at institutions of technical higher education. Nikolai Alexandrovich Spezhnev, 1821 to 1882, was one of the most radical members of the group. After the amnesty, he was assigned to forced residence in Siberia, where he edited the Irkutsk Province Gazette. A man of strong will and great charm, he treated the other members of the circle with a shade of superiority. He made a deep impression on Dostoyevsky, who almost certainly used him as one source for the portrayal of Stavrogin in The Devils. Pavel Nikolaevich Filippov, 1825 to 1855, was especially identified with the program of distributing articles on social problems. It was probably his idea to establish a secret printing press. He served his sentence not in Sevastopol, but in Izmail. Later, he served in the army and died of wounds received during the Crimean War. Felix Gustavovich Toll, 1823 to 1867, had taught Russian literature at the engineering school that Dostoyevsky had attended. He was assigned to forced residence in Tomsk, where he became friends with Mikhail Bakunin and produced a 3-volume dictionary that was published between 1863 and 1866. Mikhail Vasilyevich Butashevich Petroshavsky, 1821 to 1866, was the circle's founder. His orientation influenced by Fourier and Feuerbach, was rationalist and positivist, rejecting nationalism, religion, and morality. It was a speech of his that drew the attention of the Tsarist police to the group's Friday gatherings and led to the arrests. After the amnesty, he was assigned to forced residence in Irkutsk, where he was allowed to practice his profession as a lawyer. Nikolai Alexandrovich Mombelli, 1823 to 1891, had been a lieutenant in the Moscow Imperial Guards Regiment. After the amnesty, he served in the army in the Caucasus. Fyodor Nikolaevich Lvov, 1823 to 1885, was trained as a chemist, but had also been an officer in the Moscow Imperial Guards Regiment. He returned to European Russia in 1862, became secretary of the Russian Technical Society, and represented it at exhibitions in London and Brussels. Nikolai Petrovich Grigorev, 1822 to 1886, was a lieutenant in the Imperial Grenadier Guards. The mock execution triggered a mental disorder, and after the amnesty, he was turned over to the care of his family in Nizhny Novgorod, now Gorky. Vasily Andreevich Golovinsky, born 1829, was a lawyer. He stood out in the group for his vehemence in advocating the emancipation of the serfs. He later entered government service in Simbirsk, now Ulyanovsk, and resumed the practice of the law. The deportees of previous years were the Decembrists. Dostoevsky later wrote about the meeting of the Petroshavsky with the Decembrists' wives in Diary of a Writer. The very decent man who was commandant of the Omsk prison was Major General de Grave. He and Dostoevsky became quite friendly, and he sometimes entertained Dostoevsky at his home. Drill Major Krivtsov is portrayed in House of the Dead as a vicious and slovenly man. KII-V was Konstantin Ivanich Ivanov. died 1867. Son-in-law of the Decembrist Annenkov, see below. He graduated from an engineering school, possibly the same one Dostoyevsky attended, and he then entered the Army Engineering Corps. He served in Western Siberia, perhaps in Omsk, and then was transferred to Petersburg, where he became adjutant to the Inspector General of Army Engineers. He was in special favor with Edward Ivanovich Todlebin, see note to letter 24, who was primarily responsible for bringing about the alleviation of Dostoevsky's situation in Siberia. Mikhail's business was a cigarette factory, which was doing well at the time. Mikhail Petrovich was a fictitious name used as a code between the two brothers. Giovanni Battista Vico, 1688 to 1744, was an Italian philosopher. Francois Guizot, 1787 to 1874, Augustin Thierry, 1795 to 1856, Adolf Thiers, 1797 to 1877, and Leopold von Ranke, 1795 to 1886, were historians. The young Circassian was Allais, who had been convicted of taking part with his older brothers in the robbery and murder of an Armenian merchant and his bodyguards. Dostoevsky taught him to read Russian from the New Testament, and in House of the Dead he wrote that although Allais was a Muslim, he had been strongly moved by the teachings of Jesus. The inmate who cried when saying goodbye to Dostoevsky is described in House of the Dead under the name of Sushilov. The leave-taking scene is in the last chapter. Ivan Alexandrovich Annenkov, 1802 to 1874, was a Decembrist who had been sentenced to 20 years at hard labor for his part in the plot. He served a sentence in Chita and Tobolsk, where he remained until the 1856 amnesty. His daughter Olga was the wife of K.I. Ivanov. Carl Gustav Keres, 1789 to 1869, was a German physician and philosopher, a follower of Schelling and Schopenhauer, and the author of Psyche, 1846. Ivan Alexandrovich Nabokov, 1787 to 1852, was the chairman of the committee that investigated the Petrushevsky affair. Most of the members of the group described him as a kind and compassionate man. In 1848, he was appointed a member of the military council and made commandant of the Peter and Paul fortress. Madame Pleshcheva was the mother of Alexei Nikolaevich Pleshchev. Alexander Vasilovich Druzhinin, 1824 to 1864, was regarded for some time as Russia's outstanding literary critic. He was a frequent contributor to The Contemporary and then wrote a regular column in the Petersburg Gazette, which he transferred to a library for reading upon becoming editor of that magazine in 1856. For identification of Ostrovsky, Pozemsky, Yevgenia Tur, and Krestovsky, see note to letter 23. The fortress in which Dostoevsky had written a child's fairy tale was the Peter and Paul fortress, where he had been held after his arrest in 1849. Alexander Chernov was the pen name of Nikolai D. Aksharumov. His short story, The Double, Dvoinik, was published in Notes of the Fatherland in 1859.